I'm hanging with some of my favorite ladies today for the Last Thing Thrifted Open Collab. Jody of Jody at Southern Seasons, Dawn of Shabby Meets Bling, Annie of Crafting with Indie Annie Jones, Shelly of Repurposed My Way, Marika of Marika Creations, and Zana of OK at Home DIY. We're also being joined by a lot of our other creative friends, so please be sure to check out the description box where you'll find links to all of these ladies' channels and to the playlist. Welcome to Up All Night DIY. I'm Marika. Thanks for joining me. For both of my projects today, I'm going to be repurposing some of this commercial grade canvas. My husband brought this home from a job that he had been working. They were just going to throw them away. They're huge curtains that were meant to separate rooms, so they're very thick and hefty. You can see the grommets up here at the top. He's always on the lookout for me, for things that he thinks I can repurpose, which is great because otherwise they're just going to wind up in a landfill. So we're adding to my summer Carnival series, and we have a lot to do. Let's get into it. I have my fabric folded over, and I'm going to trace out a rectangle onto some of the canvas here. I'm using an 8.5 by 11 inch piece of cardstock as my template. I'm going to pin the two layers together, and then I'm going to cut them out. This is going to be our wee pillowcase. We're going to stitch this up in a moment or two, but first we are going to trace this oval onto a piece of our canvas and cut this out. This is going to be where we're going to paint our text. It's all cut out, and I've applied a vinyl stencil to it. I designed the stencil in Silhouette Studio and cut it just from regular old shelving vinyl. Due to the wide weave and texture of this fabric, I'm 100% sure that when I paint this, the paint is going to bleed. So to try to cut down on the bleeding, I'm going to pounce a layer of Mod Podge over the lettering on my stencil, just like I would if I were painting on a wood surface. And I'm using cosmetic sponge to do the pouncing. Now that the Mod Podge is dry, I'm going to pounce on the color. I'll start with the outline around the oval, and I'm using Ceramcoat Ocean Reef for this. This is just regular old acrylic paint. I haven't added a fabric medium to this, which of course you could if you'd like to, but for my purposes, I didn't feel it was necessary. This is strictly for decor purposes, so I'm not worried about it being soft or anything like that. Also, I know that the paint will take on more of a distressed effect, and that's really kind of what I'm looking for to give it that vintage look and feel. I'll be using Ceramcoat Watermelon to pounce over the lettering, and we're going to alternate the red and blue on the stars. Now, of course, I'm going to do 2 coats on each section. I apply the second coat after the first coat is fully dry. Okay, fingers crossed that we get some crisp lines, or crispish. Anyway. Let's take a look, peel this off. You know what? Doesn't look too bad. Let's get the rest of the vinyl off of here and, we'll see what we're dealing with. There's just a couple of straight pieces of vinyl, so we'll remove those. Yeah, that's not so bad. I'll be able to clean up some of those edges. Just going over the edges of the quasars. And then, of course, I'm going to come in and add a drop shadow to the left side of each letter and star. I'm using a very small detail brush for this. It's a 00, and I'm going to add a drop shadow, which is basically just outlining down the left side of the letters with blue. Took a little extra effort, but definitely worth it. A paint pen probably would have worked better here, but all my paint pens dried out. Plus, I don't think I had the same color blue, or even anything close to it. I also add a drop shadow to the red stars with the Ocean Reef blue. I'll have to go over each stroke a couple of times, just because of the texture of the canvas. The paint doesn't easily flow, across it as it would if it were another type of smoother surface. Using a number 2 round brush, I'm going to add a red outline around the oval. Moving on to our pillowcase. As you can see, I've taped some stripes using painter's tape, and I'm going to use Mod Podge to pounce over the edges of the tape. If I didn't mention it before, the reason I'm doing this is the Mod Podge assists with preventing the paint to bleed under the tape, so we'll get a crisper line. And we're pouncing over the stripes with watermelon paint, just like we did with the lettering. And you can see here that the paint is taking better in some areas of the fabric than in others. Not really sure why that's happening, but you know what, that's okay. Again, we want a distressed look, so this is going to help us out a wee bit. And just like before, I'm going to give this 2 coats. The paint is dry, so now we can remove the tape, and hopefully the stripes are in good shape. Yeah, that one looks pretty good. Actually, they all look pretty good. There is a little smudginess here and there, but that's okay. We can clean up the lines. I'm going to outline each stripe with Ocean Reef, so that'll clean it up a wee bit. And doing the outlining, it is going to take a little more time than it usually would. Again, because I got to do each stroke, a couple of times. When the paint was dry, I pinned right sides together, and I'm going to stitch around the edges. I'll leave an opening of a few inches so that we can turn it right side out. Now that I've done that, I'm going to use some fabric glue to glue the oval to the center of the pillowcase. I'm just going to eyeball it, because that's how I roll. I'm not going to measure anything. That just gets me in trouble. Just pressing it down. I'm going to squeegee over it to make sure that it's well stuck. I'll trim around the oval with some of this Dollar Tree PomPom trim. I got this around Christmas time. It's been in my stash for ages. I'm using some polyfill from an old cushion to stuff our knock them down pillow. I'm not going to overstuff it. I just want enough in there so that it holds its shape. You know what I'm saying? Once it's fully stuffed, I'll use some fabric glue to seal the opening. And I'll clamp it until it sets. And that's that. It's pretty cute. DIY 2, knock them down clowns. I know a lot of people don't like clowns, but these guys are perfect because you get to throw a ball at them and hit them in the face. Take out all your frustrations. Plus, ours are going to be cute. I folded over my fabric and I made a template for the clown, which I'm going to trace onto the canvas. Now I've made a slightly smaller template, which will go in the center of the larger template, and we're just going to trace this on. It's on this template line where we're going to do our stitching. I'm going to pin the 2 layers together. However, this time, I'm not going to cut out the shape until after we stitch them together. Back at the sewing machine, I will align it so that my needle will trace around that inside shape. The needle is directly on top of the line. And I'm going to leave the bottom open so that we can stuff the clown. When I cut it out, I'll cut around the outside template line. Once again, I cut stencils from vinyl to paint on the faces, and his belly is going to get a large star. So we're just going to repeat the same process that we did for the pillow by pouncing over the stencils with Mod Podge first. To paint, I'll start with the nose and the mouth by pouncing it with some Ceramcoat watermelon. His eyes and the star on his belly will be Ocean Reef, of course, and everything's going to get 2 coats. Time to peel off the vinyl. A little blotchy in some spots, but not terrible. Again, we'll be able to clean this up somewhat. I add a red drop shadow to the eyes and the star with watermelon. This definitely helped to hide some of the ragged edges. Let's give him some blue eyebrows, and we're going to outline his mouth with the blue as well. And I'm going to do everything to the other guy that I do to this guy. We're going to boop his nose first with a dot of Ocean Reef. Boop. When that dot dries, the blue dot will get a slightly smaller white dot. And we're going to stuff these guys with our recycled polyfill. Now we can glue close the opening. To finish these fellows off, we'll trim them with Festooning, naturally. A wee bit of hot glue will do the job. I burned my fingers multiple times trimming this guy out. So we're just going to go completely around him and he'll be done. Kind of cute for a couple of clowns. Am I right? I'm right. Look at them. They're fun guys. Here's a final look at our Knock 'em Down Clown ensemble. Our wee decorative pillow. I'm very happy with the way this came together. I think it turned out really cute. And I think these fellas are the perfect company for the pillow. And despite the fact that they are clowns, I think they're adorable without any creep factor. Let me know what you think. Are they cute or are they creepy? I hope you like my latest addition to my Summer Carnival series. The best thing about today's project is that there was no out-of-pocket cost. The fabric was a freebie and the rest of the supplies I had on hand. Thanks to Dawn, Annie, Jody, Shelly, Marika, and Zana, as well as all of the other talented creators who joined us. Their links and the link to the playlist are in the description box. Head over and watch. Show everyone some love with a big thumbs up. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Up all night with Marika.